G'day there guys, welcome back to In My Shed. I'm BC. What's the old bloke up to today? Well, I've got a little job modifying a bush to fit on the Clarkson tool and cutter grinder. I've got several 100mm dish wheels and all got different bloody centre holes. And this is a bush I made, goes from a 1/2 inch to 3/4. Made that a fair while ago, and I thought I reamed the centre hole, but it's about 1.5 thou too small for the shaft. So I'm going to attempt to do a little bit of reaming, but the reaming is the second part of it. The first part is aligning the item in the lathe. And when you've got a tiny little washer, and I've only got a big lathe, I would very much like a small Hercus or something, or preferably a number 0 or number 1 turret or capstan lathe, but it's something I can't get at a reasonable price. So on a big chuck, when you're trying to line up a little bit of a washer to ream it out, you've got to find a way of centralising it, and you just can't get enough fingers in there. So I use the back end of, in this case, a 1/2 inch drill or a piece of rod the right size, and that holds the item perpendicular in the chuck. I'll give you a look. Okay, this time it seems to have focused up quite well on the tailstock back a little bit. And all I've done is I've placed the washer as close as I could to the end of the chuck jaws. Now, this 1/2 inch drill is just a few thou too big for the hole. Just wind it up. It centralises everything nicely in the jaws, or as good as I'm going to get it. Back the tailstock out. Swap it over for the chucking reamer. And I'll slow my speed right down for this, 120 RPM. Now, say a little prayer. I don't want to lose this part if I can. It's just not that bloody easy to make. Say a little prayer for this part. I can see it taking a little bit of material out. Now it's gone easier. It's just a burr on one side. Yes, we're through. Just a small amount of fluff on the end of the reamer. Well, as I say in the movies, Bob's your uncle. I'll take you over to the machine now and show you where it goes. Okay, back again. I've made this particular shot for one of the subscribers who was very interested in the makeup of my indexing arm. I'm pretty sure this came with one of the tool and cutter grinders, maybe the Servian, although the paint doesn't quite match up. Parts get robbed off grinders and passed around. I've had it with me for probably 25 years. It's very ruggedly constructed. Quite a nice piece of cast iron for the base, sturdy column that would be about 22mm, cast iron bracket, but you could easily weld something up. So we can go up and down on the column, swivel here, swivel there. You can rotate the guts inside that clamp so you can index in either direction with the spring. And the only hard part to make would be the internal shaft, which has got a keyway on one side for a little pin to lock into, and it's marked off in thous up the top here. So fully adjustable, swivel around to any angle, slide in and out, and although it's big and robust, it's an absolutely lovely bit of kit to use. So I just thought I'd give you a look at that. Now I'll try to swing you in on the actual wheel head and show you the mounting of the wheel. Get that out of the way. There we are. Back in 1 sec. Okay, there's the inner wheel flange, that little bush that I just cleaned up, and all it was just a little bit of a burr on the inside, and I honestly don't know how it was there. Now for all the purists, quite a sharp ring. That'd be painful, wouldn't it, a sharp ring? Fits neatly over there. Clean any crud off the flange. Now the Clarkson grinders went through a review of how they were built through several iterations. This is the Mark II. And a few of the improvements over the previous series, the Mark I didn't have a hole in the main shaft to put a timing bar in to help tighten up the wheels. It didn't have the quick action lock on the rise and fall arm, and it didn't have a graduated wheel up the top on the adjustment as well. Anyway, I'll get this set up for another dose of gulleting. This cutter has to have about 3mm ground off it. It's quite badly damaged. And I've locked that up. I shouldn't have done. Okay, when I'm ready to make some sparks, I'll bring you back. Okay guys, this is the cutter mounted up in the machine. Once again, I'm on 35 degrees on the wheel head, tilted back to get the angle. I'm using, unlock that, my indexing finger. You can see the rim of the cutter or the land. It pushes the finger back against the spring. Now in a previous episode, I had this thing apart and showed all the gizzards. So you should be able to locate that. Quite a big range of adjustment with the thimble mechanism being able to slide up and down through the main body. Now I've got the cutting edge once again just to the left a couple of thou, and that part doesn't have to be accurate. The only really accurate part is the height of the tooth, and that's regulated when you're grinding the teeth in the tool and cutter grinder. So I'll start this up and I'll keep my head out of the way for a couple of minutes just to make sure the grinding wheel won't fly apart. I'll make some sparks and then I'll bring you back. Okay guys, I come to a bit of an impasse with this. It's a centre ground 4-flute cutter, and it's grounded at a much shallower angle, and I'm going to have to take a lot of material out there, and I don't like going that far with a wheel that wide. You're getting a big contact area, but I'll also be depleting the inside of the inner cutting edge, and I think that would fail. Not very good. So no, this setup is not satisfactory. I may try a General Engineering ceramic grinding wheel, which I'll zoom you out and show you. That's this fellow here, 125mm. It's called a grind all. It's a cut, grind and sand combined wheel. I've used them before and they are very, very tough, double reinforced, very good acting. So maybe I can use that, but I think I'm going to encounter a lot of chatter. So I'll keep my wits about me. Okay, if anything progresses, I'll bring you back then. Okay guys, back again on the Clarkson grinder. I've put a different setup in because I've got to go back to square one. I haven't been doing it correctly, and as per normal you extend it and put a longer shaft and the wrong holder in and it gets too far away, you get a lot of chatter. But also the Clarkson is a bloody weird thing to set up. I don't know how they made any money grinding cutters in the factory, although they wouldn't be using a protractor like myself. they'd be using setup plates, but yeah, it is a little bit convoluted. Well, I'll run you through the steps. I've got the main table at 90 degrees to the spindle. I've got the top table currently angled at 35 degrees to the main table. The workhead is reversed, so you've got the straight side at the back. It is tilted down at approximately 10 degrees. And yeah, it's strange. The instructions are almost written in Old English, so it's a bit hard for me to follow. I've got the gooseneck indexing holder coming in from the bottom. So I can index in that direction, back to where we were, and then lock it. Now, there's two different setups for this. For the short tooth, you have the table at 35 degrees, and for the long tooth, because in slot drills they're offset, you have it set to 45 degrees. And that changes the angle of the big gash at the back. Okay. Now, according to the Clarkson manual, you feed the wheel across to the desired amount, and that might take 2 or 3 goes, and then you down feed the wheel to get your feed. And what you're trying to achieve is that flat there. Where's my pointer? That flat there, as well as this surface, in the one operation. I suppose when you get used to it and you can take a few more thou than I do, it'll go a hell of a lot faster. But I'll put it back into position, assume the position. And I even had to change the handle on the gear shaft to get it to go through right. And you pass it through under the grinding wheel, down feed more under the grinding wheel. So let me get the book back out again. B, that's for the short tooth should be 1/4 to 17/64 long, and the long tooth should be 3/8 of an inch plus or minus 5 thou. They even have a setup chart which gives you the diameter of the cutter and then all your dimensions from the chart at the top. Quite a complex procedure, and it took me a little bit to get my head around. Okay, so you can't just keep rotating and take the same amount off each tooth. Now you grind it down and try to achieve a length of the tooth edge past the ground portion. Now it's 1/4 inch on the short tooth and 3/8 of an inch on the long one. Now I didn't get the exact portion correct, but I did get the overall length reasonably correct. Now this was ground similar but different. I had my indexer up over the top, and everything that Clarkson do, they try to contract the process so that that's as small as possible physically, and that's not just to fit the grinder, that's to take all your chatter and vibration down to ground. That's the important part. Now I'll try and zoom you in a little bit. And see if we can keep that zoomed while we pass the wheel through. There you are, you can see the cutter passing underneath the wheel. I'm not doing it with any sparks. I don't want to get grit in the front of the camera. It's got a big iris there. Okay, so you can come out and see the setup. This has been good for me because I'm learning how to set up other machines a little bit better. Contract the process down so that the height above the table is as little as possible. I will later on try to do gashing on an end mill. I tried it with a couple of other wheels yesterday, but I didn't have the process shrunk down this far, and you actually take the workhead off the bracket for gashing the end and bolt the workhead directly to the table. So I'm learning that the smaller workheads are very, very sensitive to how they're placed. Also, some of the wheels I had yesterday were not stable or not very, very rigid, and I had a bit of a think. I've had some of those in stock for 8 or 10 years, so all the thin reinforced wheels are going to get the coke and sauce in the bin and get a bit of fresh stock. And talking on the same subject, there's Mr. Rongfu tool and cutter grinder, or Herring Falls, whatever you want to call it. And when we first bought that, we immediately come across a problem, and the guys that were using it in our factory must have been about 1.5 foot shorter than us. And hunched over it, it was very, very uncomfortable. So rather than lift the machine up off the floor, Mr. Smart Operator lifted the bloody workhead up off the table. I always thought, hell, this is a shit of a thing to dress the wheel. You get a hell of a lot of vibration, really badly chatters. And now I realise that's why. So I'm hunting around for a couple of pieces of stout dunnage or some SHS or whatever, so I can lift it up about 100 mil off the floor and get rid of the height above the table with that workhead. Once again, that'd probably solve a lot of problems I've had over the years. The indexing unit on top of that is a really good thing to use. I'll zoom you in. And except for the right angle bracket that holds the indexer to the workhead, the rest of it came off a air bearing spindle machine for grinding the flutes of end mills. Well, I don't grind the flutes of end mills, all of mine are well and truly knackered and don't get bloody re-ground when they're that bad. But it's a very nice indexer. I think it was modelled on a Walden air bearing spindle, but it was a Japanese import. The little micrometer indexer is very, very good, and in a previous video I have shown that pulled apart. Bring you back when more happens. G'day there guys, back again. Sorry it's been a few days, we've had some terrible bloody weather here, and I've been a little bit off crook. I think I've had a bloody virus of all things. I've had a few successes and I've had probably more failures, and I honestly don't know why. I'm sitting down scratching my head. I've got a CBN wheel up there that I showed you in the last clip, and later on I'll show you the job it did on an end mill. Like the finish is absolutely beautiful. It doesn't make any noise when it's grinding, not the zing you get with a vitrified wheel, that's for sure. But anyone out there with a bit of experience using CBN wheels, this is a first for me. I'm having, I don't know, failure on the surface of the wheel. Now it could just be that the bond is peeling back and allowing more grain to be presented. It could be that I'm wearing the wheel fast, I don't know. But it's a Norton wheel, so it's a fairly high quality, good brand. I wouldn't expect any bloody wear on it. I've come up with a limitation on the Clarkson grinder. I will modify some more wheels, but I've got to get them in first to continue with the job. I had a dismal failure with gulleting. No matter how I tried to approach it with the machine, it just doesn't have that envelope. And later today, I hope to get onto the wrong fill and try it again. But reconfiguring the wrong fill will be a different video. So I'll move some lights around and zoom you in, give you a look at the CBN wheel and your opinions, please. Okay, that's as close as I can get the camera to focus on the wheel. You can see there the outer portion of the wheel is touching. It's not been dressed or balanced or anything, so I'm getting all the wear in one spot. But put a straight edge across the wheel and I can see daylight at that portion, so I would say there's 2 or 3 thou of clearance there or wear. Now I don't know if this is just the bond breaking away from the surface of the wheel or if that's unexpected wear, so please let me know if you've got experience. So that's only ground 3 cutters, and the cutters had to have a fair bit taken off them, but at that rate I'm going to do about 50 or 60 cutters and throw the wheel in the bin. And to buy another Norton brand wheel, you're looking at $450 or thereabouts. So at that rate, $8 a cutter for wheel wear, no, just not acceptable. I'm not getting much better than what I would get out of a vitrified flared cup wheel. So it could be something I'm doing wrong. It's a 2-speed machine. I've started using it on low speed, which is about 1850 RPM, which is what I see some of the other regrinders doing with diamond wheels, saying they get much better performance and much better life. I'll zoom you back so you can get a bit better perspective. That's the setup. The finish on the cutters is absolutely outstanding. One of them, just a 3/4 end mill that I'll show you shortly, it came up better than a factory grind. I'm really pleased with that. So sorry, no noise in demonstrations today. The sparks that I've been making with gulleting the cutters has just been far too dangerous. I won't continue with it until I sort the problem out. I think the problem could be overextension. With the smaller grinders, there's no support under the table, and I haven't tried using this machine yet because it would mean a complete reconfigure. But I'll take you over to what I've been doing on the Clarkson. Back again, fellas. Okay, that's the end of the successfully ground cutter, and it just ground so easily. I was quite surprised. And the finish is better than what I've ever achieved using an aluminium oxide wheel. You can see the primary and secondary relief, and luckily with this cutter I didn't have to gull it at all. It was deep enough. So I'm happy with what can be achieved using that CBN wheel just as a grinding wheel. And as a off note, I've ordered 2 of each 3 descriptions of wheels, a flared cup wheel in CBN, a 100mm by 1.5 cutoff in CBN, and a 100 by 1.5 cutoff in diamond out of good old Mr. China. Instead of the $350 for a good wheel here, they come out to, I think, about $80. But we'll see what they perform like when they get here. Okay, the Clarkson tool and cutter grinder manual is a bit like a travel brochure when it comes to describing how to do things. Let's see if I can get you over this top a little better. Yes, you might be able to see it there. There's the part in question, and it states, this is incredible, use a suitable wheel dressed properly, turn the work head about 10 degrees that way to apply a bit of rake inside the flute, and approach the wheel and gullet the cutter. Well, I've only got a 100mm wheel, and it's just not cutting the mustard because the indexing body hits up against the spindle. I did have my big indexer set up on the side here, so I gave it a go with that, and as soon as I approached the wheel, and you're supposed to do this as a plunging action straight in, not as a pass-through action, it just chattered that bad I had to stop. I was dropping a bloody turd in my pants. I put a little saucer wheel in, very sharp Alox, exactly the same. The graunching sound coming off the wheel is absolutely terrible. And I started to wonder, what the hell am I doing wrong? So I put the attachment back on the angle bracket, lifted the wheel head right up so that I could pass through over the top of the cutter and just take a thou at a time. It come back to almost acceptable. If you tried to go anything more than about a 3/4 of a thou, it would squawk like bloody hell. And I thought, this is going to take 20 minutes to the end of each cutter. Like, this is just not correct. Now, zoom you back out again. And I think part of the reason is the table is set up as per the Clarkson book to allow the table to travel, and there's no support under the workhead. I don't know how badly worn the bottom of the table is. The front of the main table is slightly worn, but if I've got any convexity, how's that for a right word, any bow that way, there would be very little support for the table out there. Now that was tight. I think the end product here is these tables coming off, checking how flat they are, and I've got a good straight edge to do that with, and putting the lower table up on the shaper and recut the V-ways and check the V-ways that are on the body underneath. I haven't done that before. I've taken it off and cleaned the table and lubed it, but I haven't gone as far as checking the wear and the dovetails, but that'll be a completely different video. So the correct wheel to use is 125 by 6 or 5 inch by a quarter. I've only got a 4 inch by a quarter, and it will just barely do the job, but I've tried it and the noise coming out of there is horrible. Now you're cutting almost vertical on the end of the grinder, the cutter, and you've just got to leave a slight scallop. You've got to be about 3 mil deeper on the outside than you are in the centre. I couldn't get it to work. Fall on sword. Okay, this is little Mr. Wrong Fu grinder, and I think the main difference between this and the Clarkson, this particular workhead swivels at the base, where with Clarkson you swivel the top table. So straight away you're taking a lot of the support out of the table, and the vibration should always go straight down through the structure to the main base. When you've got a table that's canted lever over to the side, the Clarkson is that sensitive in this respect that with my large indexing unit on the table, if I've got that cantilevered off the side by more than about 2 inches, the table starts to shudder as you move the operating lever. It just can't take the weight. It's too sensitive. So I'm going to break this setup down, level the wheel head, put a cutter in the sensitive workhead and get underneath it and see if I can gull it with this machine. It means taking down that configuration, but hell, I haven't sharpened an annular cutter for probably a year and a half. No, do something great. About 9 months or so. So it doesn't matter losing that setup now. Well, in conclusion, as the doctor would say, what can I say, fellas? It hasn't been a good couple of days. I've been scratching my head, trying to figure out what's wrong with the Clarkson grinder. When the working week starts, I'll ring my mate Don, order a couple of 125 by 2.5 cut-off wheels, which nowadays is as close as I can get to that particular wheel, and I'll try and find out if there's any 125 saw gulleting wheels available. But the saw gulleting wheels I do have are 6 inch, and they make the situation worse because then you've got trouble with the wheel guard. So yeah, I'm between a rock and a hard place. It's a bit of a difficult one to do, and I've been scouring the internet, and the only videos I can get from gashing is Andy at Laffy Mountain, and he does just a plunge grind with a 38A 60 wheel that's been beveled with a diamond dresser, and it works quite well for him. And all the little bench top end mill grinding attachments, you just put the end mill in the holder, push it down from the top and wobble it until it settles in and grinds the gash. And those wheels just don't seem to have any trouble. The trouble is specifically with me. So I'll reconfigure the wrong Fu and see what I can get out of that. And when I get around to doing the tables on the Clarkson, I'll definitely bring you in there. The sub table, you can see the top surface on it has obviously been finished by a shaper and quite roughly. And it doesn't look like there's any wear there, so I don't know. They use those grinders to do thousands of cutters a day in the factory, and their cutters were all finished. However, all of the end mills were not centre cutting. So they probably never experienced this problem. The slot drills are gashed differently, as I've shown in the previous video. Okay, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and send me your comments. Fill the comments with what I'm doing wrong or what you can suggest that we can do, because I'm at a bit of a standstill. The chatter was that bad, I was fearing that the wheel was going to fly apart. And it's not just one wheel. I've tried 3 different wheels. I put a flared cup wheel up there, and yes, I can grind the gash, but only if the cutter's close to vertical and I'm passing through it, not in a plunge operation. And the plunge operation is what is supposed to be done. Okay, see you next video.